Redragon sent over two variants of the Dharma K740, one wired and one wireless, but both aluminum. What I have here is the wireless version with a Trimode connectivity. This has a 90% keyboard layout, which helps save more space for your mouse while maintaining the inclusion of a numpad. This is a tray-mounted keyboard, so it doesn't bounce like gasket-mounted keyboards. Yet, some users still prefer a stiff feel that you get from this structure. Connectivities include Wi-Fi, wired, and Bluetooth, powered by a 4000 mAh battery pack inside. I think the battery included is just about enough and would last even longer if you turn off your RGB. By pressing the function key and delete, you will be able to check how much battery you have left on the keyboard as the top row lights up. I tested this out for gaming, as I always do, and I did not feel or experience any issues with my keystrokes or even delay. This has a 1000 Hz polling rate and NKRO, so you're sure you get standard response times with no interferences. This has a knob for volume control, and we will explore this in more detail in the following segments, as I would like to touch on my favorite part of this keyboard, the switches. The switches included here are the linear mint Mambo switches that I'm starting to think are my favorite switches made by Redragon. They sound clacky, especially when paired with a stiff aluminum plate. If you don't like these switches, then you're free to replace them, as this keyboard has a full universal hot swap north-facing PCB. Any regular mechanical switch, either 3-pin or 5-pin, would fit. Now let's move on to the software. Here I have the software of the K740 Pro. The first tab that you get right here is for key binding, where you have the regular keyboard buttons and mouse buttons here as well. There are a lot more buttons to choose from. They're just right here. Moving on, you have the profiles right here. You could add, delete, import, or export. So in the next tab right here, you have RGB settings, where you could choose the RGB modes right here and choose a specific color right here for your RGB settings, or colors to be more precise. Moving on, we have here reactive RGB. So the lights on your keyboard react to your PC sounds. And lastly, we have the macro recording tab right there. Let me add in a new macro here. So yep, it detects both your keyboard buttons and mouse clicks. All good. Inside the box, you get the keyboard, cable, key puller combo, 4 extra switches, documentation, and a sticker pack. You do not get a PET anti-dust cover, which was a bummer, and I'm hoping that maybe in the next keyboard releases of Redragon, please, add one. The cable in the box is a generic USB-C cable. It's not too thick, and I have no complaints about it. Onto the knob, it's also made of aluminum, just like the keyboard's body, and I know because it feels cold. It's not overly wobbly, but there is very slight wobble to it, which is something to expect with any keyboard knobs. I like the level of tactility of the knob when twisting it left or right, as it gives you a very good feedback on whether one step left or right has been actuated. Now, onto the keyboard. This is a full aluminum built keyboard with a little bit of a twist. Most aluminum keyboards do not have kick-up feet underneath to angle the keyboards, but attached underneath are plastic materials to be able to accommodate kick-up feet. You also get rubber anti-slip pads underneath so it doesn't move around your desk. The keyboard is also fairly heavy thanks to the aluminum build. However, I did notice that it's not as heavy as other 90% aluminum mechanical keyboards I've tried. This is mainly because there are no internal dampers within that add to the weight of the keyboard. So in terms of modability, I think this is a good candidate for you to play around with different kinds of foams or internal dampers. So far, the keyboard doesn't sound hollow when tapping around it or underneath. And that is thanks to the thick aluminum used on the keyboard's housing. The USB-C input is by the middle of the top side of the keyboard, which is just okay, but I still would have preferred an input by the left. Then underneath the keyboard is where you will find the connectivity switch and OS switch. I would have preferred switches placed at the sides or at the top side of the keyboard so they're easily accessible. Anyways, let's move on. The keycap set this comes with are SA keycaps, which are very tall if you compare them with cherries. I'd like to believe they're made of PBT, but I still have to confirm though. I really like the double shot shine through design of the keycaps, which makes it glow really well in the dark so you see the legends clearly. We'll talk more about lighting in the next segments, but anyways, looking into the stabilizers, I think this is where Redragon really needs to improve their lineup because their stabilizers are loosely fitted on the positioning plate. Ideally, the stabilizers won't move when placed on the positioning plate, but if this is the case, then you can add in some kind of thick tape and place it on the contact points between the plate and the stab. Next, you're going to want to re-lubricate the stabilizer wire with dielectric grease. Moving on to the switches, I am a huge fan of light springs because I have light fingers and I prioritize fast keystrokes. The only problem I have with light switch springs is the increased typos due to the very light springs that cause you to actuate keys by accident. It's something to get used to though, and once you do get used to ultralight springs, you just wouldn't want to go back to regular average weighted springs. Having said that, the linear mambo switches that the keyboard has in stock has 40-gram springs, and these switches are pre-lubricated so they feel really smooth to type on, and most especially, they feel really consistent to game on. And before I forget, here's a sound test. This is offered in only one colorway, which was a bummer because I would have loved a white colored version. Anyhow, you get a dark themed body and a keycap set that may not suit girly PC builds. The keyboard has a total of 3 colors on its keycaps with purple, violet, and dark gray. My camera might be picking up black, but those are actually dark gray and not entirely black. I like the contrast to the keycap colors, making the keyboard all the more aesthetic versus just an all-black keycap set. Though I think an all-black keycap set would also look good on this. Now onto the legends of the keycaps. I like that they're positioned in the top middle, so they look more aesthetic, even if it's just a minor subtle detail. To be honest, one thing I didn't like about the keyboard in terms of aesthetics is the branding in the front side of the keyboard, as I personally do not like brands on keyboards, mice, or headsets that I use. Anyhow, you get light indicators for the keyboard beside the backspace and enter key. One for caps lock, one for num lock, another one for connectivity and battery status. You don't get an indicator for win lock though. And since we're talking about lights, by pressing the function key and insert, you should be able to cycle through the RGB modes pre-installed. The LEDs aren't bright, but I'm glad they went with north-facing LEDs, so they shine directly underneath the keycap legend. Now, I am sure I missed out on a detail or two that you're looking for, so let me know if you have any questions below. Overall, I think the keyboard passes in terms of build quality and aesthetics. If only it had dampers inside, then I would deem this a high-value keyboard. But as for modability, again, this is a good candidate. In the description box below, you will find my affiliate links on where to find this keyboard, and every purchase you make on those links buys me a cup of coffee. So get me and my whole team a cup of coffee, and we will make sure we make more of these videos for you. We'll see you again next time.